Hello, welcome to the Volvo 5-cylinder channel again, and today's topic is injectors and mass airflow sensors. Now, I have a few, let's start with a few injectors. Here are the stock 850R injectors. They are white, and that will become more confusing once we go along, because these are Bosch white Bosch injectors, but now Bosch has released another set of white injectors that actually flow equal amounts to these green injectors. These are the green giants from Bosch, and these are genuine Bosch. There are fakes out there as well, and I think one of the ways to tell apart that there is a small, let's see if I can show you. This little brand here should be there, a little round thing. Looks like, well, it's depicting of something, but there's, I think if you go Google beware of fake Bosch green giants or something like this, you will get a page displaying that there are actually fakes out there, and the fakes flow, the good ones flow just as good as the Bosch ones, but they do not flow from one injector to another. They do not flow equally much. But anyways, so the 850R has these white injectors from stock. They flow 350 cc's per minute. That's like 1,000,000 pounds an hour if you live in Burma. 1,000,000, that's a lot. So anyways, 350 cc's per minute, and this is at a rated flow at 3.0 bars. That's also like 1,000,000 pounds of pressure, so I use a lot of pressure in Burma, apparently. And the base pressure of the Volvo 850 is actually 3 bars, so this will flow 350 cc's. And these are good to up to, on a 5-cylinder engine it's actually very, very simple. You take the rated flow, cc's per minute, and 90% of that will basically be how much horsepower you can get maximum out of these. And so 90% of 350, we remove, so that's like 315 horsepower about you will get out of these injectors, which is quite reasonable for a stock injector. Then the green giants, they're referred to as the green giants Bosch. These are featured in the, I think, the 2000 V70R model. They came first on this model. They flow 460 cc's per minute at okay, so I will pause the video here, and actually I will look this up, these flow rates on the interwebs, because I don't want to lie to you. Okay, so through the magic of, well, not video editing here, but the magic of stopping the recording and getting the facts straight, we are continuing. So, Volvo 850 uses high impedance injectors. These green giants flow 465 cc's per minute at 3.8 bars. So at 3 bars they will be in the vicinity of a bit over 400 cc's per minute. And these ones are rated at 3 bars and 350 cc's per minute. So quite okay for a stock injector. What you will find in the T5Rs, in the 850R automatic and T5s, are basically the orange injectors, and these flow 310 cc's per minute at 3.8 bars. So in reality they are flowing at 3 bars, they will be flowing around 280 cc's in the stock engine bay. So that is why when you have a T5, T5R or similar with the orange injectors, they are the limiting factor for performance to 280 horsepower is, among other things, the orange injectors that are there. to get to 300 you will have to raise the pressure of the fuel system or actually change to bigger injectors. Many of the places who sell a stage 3 kit to the T5R or T5, they have a fuel pressure regulator that is increasing the fuel pressure with a factor 1 to 1.2, meaning that when you are running at full boost you will get more than 3 bars system pressure, and that will get you to the 300 range. But these white ones, 350cc at 3 bars, they will be good for 315 horsepower just without any more modifications. Now, why I have these green injectors actually is because at a point I did the very common mod of actually increasing the size of your injectors by a certain percentage, and then, as the keen viewer has probably noticed, I have mass airflow sensors as well here, the stock one and the bigger one. And the idea behind this mod is that you, in this case, I took my 350cc's and these that are slightly over 400 at 3 bars pressure, and the increase in size is about 30%. Or the flow rate will increase from the white to the green with about 30%. And then you take your mass airflow filter, you calculate the area, cross area here, that the air is allowed to flow through, and then you increase the area the same amount with about 30%. So you have 30% more air coming in and 30% more fuel coming in. And that will allow you to, with a stock ECU, to run basically the same amount of run more fuel, more air, without basically changing anything. But as with the bigger throttle body I covered in another video, that's not really the best way to do it. The best way is, of course, when you do this the 30% bigger airflow meter and 30% bigger injector, you actually take the time to do a proper retune, a dyno retune or a road retune, where you actually change the parameters in the ECU to accompany for this. That will give you a more that will give you a better result. Because when you increase, as you can see, these are not in my car at the moment. That is because when you just increase injector size, you don't it doesn't change the settings in the ECU that are for cold starts. So when you make a cold start with your engine, it basically say you want 1 liter extra at cold start with the white injectors with the stock ECU, that's fine, it will work perfectly. But when you take these green ones that are 30% more flowing, you will get, the engine will be basically going off pure the existing settings and not really caring too much about the other things, the other parameters. So this means you will be getting 1.3 liters. So the fuel usage will be much higher with this type of setup, because on cold starts it will be squirting unnecessary fuel that is not burnt. The other thing actually is that the ECU does not have a mass air pressure to calculate or to measure the actual boost that the engine is producing. So this means if you have a 1 bar, a chip that will give you 1 bar of pressure boost, 1 bar of boost, with this type of setup you will be getting 1.3 directly. So with this setup, my car that was then set up to boost around from the chip around 1.2, 1.3 bars, I was actually getting more like 1.6, and sometimes I would have the turbo spin away on me and it would actually go closer to 2 bars of pressure. And with a small turbo like 19T I was running, I'm still running, but was running then, it's will just produce excess heat and not really produce any excess power. So that's why I decided to switch back to this original one. And these are my stock white injectors. I'm not running them either. I'm actually running the blue injectors now. And the blue injectors, they are rated at 400 cc's, and these are, the white ones were 350, but I'm running them with the stock software. And the reason for this is that the blue ones, they are 400 cc's at 3.8 bar rated. So when you take them down to the stock 3 bar pressure that the 850 has, they are actually flowing 350 cc's. So these white ones, 350 cc's at 3 bars, 400 at 3.8 bars. The blue ones are 400 at 3.8 bars and 350 at 3 bars. So actually they are identical in flow rate, but the one thing where they're different is actually in latency. Latency is the time from that you get the signal to the injector and until it opens. So I would actually have to have my car retuned or tuned to with the proper latency for the blue injectors, but I found them to be working very well now just as a direct replacement. So I've sometimes seen some people on the internet discussing should they take white or blue injectors. Well, the answer to that is at 3 bar they are identical, at 3.8 bar they are identical. It's just the latency that's different. So they are not really up for discussion. That's not a discussion at all. It's basically the green ones that are your next big upgrade. And I think white ones are more easily found in junkyards perhaps than the blue ones. But if you're going to get new ones, I would get the blue ones, because it's okay. You can't possibly tell, but when I'm holding these two, the green one is made in somewhere around 2000. It came to the market. This white one came probably 95, 96, and one of the big differences is that the white ones, they are more heavy. You can definitely feel that there is more metal and stuff in there, and the green ones are lighter, more plasticky. Furthermore, when I let's try to see if you can see anything here. You can see there's a pattern of holes, and the most interesting thing that I found that in the green ones the holes are more aligned to here is when the injector comes into the fuel rail, it will of course squirt into the car, and the holes are aligned basically from the connector to left and right. So if the connector is pointing upwards, it's to the left and to the right, and the white ones, they are not as accurately, so here it's pointing more in this direction. And I have never felt that it would make any difference in power or in fuel consumption, but it's, I think, a nice detail that the flowing holes that the fuel is going to flow through is actually going to going directly in the direction of the intake ports in the head on the green ones. So these seem to be a bit more, there's a bit of more care went into the green ones when they were injected, because when they were manufactured, because all the green ones I have, the 5 green ones, they are pointing off to the sides very nicely, and these white ones, they were, well, they feel like they were made in a hurry, but they made a good bit of power in the days when I used them, and so on. And if anybody asks, they are not for sale. The green ones are not for sale, because why sell something when you can hang on to them forever and make babbling videos about them. So now here's an example, if somebody is interested in, of a 3-inch mass airflow sensor. And you can see that for some reason it's made to go into the stock. This is the stock size. It's made to be stock size, so it will fit all the pipes, and then there's a bit of a hump here where it goes, where the area expands to 3 inches, and here you see, hopefully you can see that the measuring mass airflow sensor is actually right in the middle, so this is quite nicely done. And there you can also see that there is this mesh and the mesh is on both sides. The mesh in the mass airflow sensor, well, usually when you talk about mass airflow sensor, people think of this, but the actual sensor is this thing you can remove. You can see here that I have removed mine for another project here. But what the mass airflow sensor gets from this mesh is actually that the swirly air is broken up and it's made more linear when it goes through the mass airflow sensor, and the measurement is more precise and correct. And if you want to measure your mass airflow sensor, if you have this stock 851, you can put basically, I think it was on, well, you can take the voltage measurement with your voltage meter and measure 2 of the pins. On when idling your car at 1000 RPM, you should get 1.4 volts voltage here, and when you go up to full throttle, this will put out about 5 volts. Sorry, it's been a hectic flu season, but anyway, so 1.4 volts at idle. This is what this basically gives the ECU, and the 1.4 volts comes because this is the sensor is actually a metal pin. You should never touch that, by the way, because it's very brittle. It's heated by this sensor, and when the air flows over that, it is cooled down. So really it's just a heating element that is cooled down, by the flowing air, and this will then give you a voltage signal from 1, or I would say 0 to 5 volts. So that's really mass airflow sensor. That's just what it does. And what I have studied and come to conclude is that the stock Bosch flow sensor works on the turbo cars, work quite a bit better. There you have less issues when if this ever breaks for you, if you change it to a non-Bosch one. I've heard that some people have a bit of problems with it to get it to work properly, and on other cars it works just fine. Everything is it's not an exact science, but what I've heard is that when people use the OEM parts, Bosch parts, they don't really have can't complain about any issues, and don't post that they have to replace it once again. So there are many manufacturers of mass airflow sensors, but running a Bosch is basically a fairly safe bet. It doesn't cost that much more than some other manufacturers in the end, because you save a lot of you can potentially save a lot of hassle. And for you who want to know, when I had this bigger injectors installed, and also this bigger MAF installed, when on idle, this was then giving out 0.9 volts compared to the 1.4 volts original. So I was actually down half a volt in signal to the engine. And before actually driving, when first starting up the car, and before I had driven 200 kilometers, the idle was a bit erratic, a bit unstable. So the car had, or the ECU had a lot more problems getting the idle to be smooth before it found out all the parameters and figured out that, okay, everything is strange with this car now, and these are the correct settings. That's the adaptation of the ECU. One thing actually that is actually why people go to a bigger mass airflow sensor. Now, okay, one thing worth mentioning. This bigger one is from some S60 or V70 model, and the thing with this is that the connections are completely different. You actually have to take your original sensor from here and put it in one of these bigger tubes like so. So here is how I did mine. I actually, okay, let's remove that dead spider, and you take your sensor and you put it here, and as you can see, the screws are not aligned the same way, so they are never meant to be installed that way, but you can actually install this flow meter into this bigger tube, or then you can go as this extreme version that you actually make your own, weld your own meter. It's actually quite a nicely made airflow meter. It's actually 100% centered, I think, this mass airflow meter, so it's perhaps I'll use it someday. I don't really know yet. And up here on the sensor you will see an arrow. This is the direction of the air, so the air is supposed to be flowing this way. Now back to what I was saying before I started babbling once again. This that comes on the 850 stock compared to this bigger one, the people usually change this and the reason for that is because after a certain amount of airflow, this doesn't give any more voltage change. It doesn't give any more signal, so it bottoms out basically. The voltage is at max. It does not register or give the engine any information that there is more air flowing. So on higher, really high, say probably closer to 400 horsepower or some ways past 350. I must admit I don't know the exact time, but when at some point this will actually stop giving a higher signal, and this means that the engine management will not be able to know how much air is going into the engine, and it will not add more fuel, and it will thus not make any more power. It will basically be at restriction for after that. So that is why people that usually have higher horsepower figures, they go for these bigger mass airflow sensors, because these still, there is a lot of air going through, but the relative figure will still be accurate at a certain after this point. So you can actually, when you are going to with a forged engine, when you're going about past the 4500, you actually have to have one of these bigger ones installed and the bigger injection. But at that stage you are already quite a lot of money into your build, so you probably have your car professionally tuned and all these things. So, or you might even change the engine management. So, but really the fact is you have to have, when going a long ways past 300, you have to have these big ones so you can get a change in the actual signal voltage. Now, interesting thing you can see here is that the 850 has 4 electrical pins. I think it's just plus, minus, and then there is the voltage out on 2 pins. So you can really, I've had my car running and measured all of these through the contact message, measured all of these combined together, and I didn't get any errors. So you just try until you get your 1.4 volt signal. The newer ones, they actually have 5 input signals here, and I really don't know what the 5th one is about, but I suspect it's some sort of a pressure sensor or heat sensor, heat sensor for the engine, to see how hot the intake air is. But short summary: T5 brown injectors at the rated 3 bar pressure. Let's go with the rated 3 bar pressure. If you put this in your car, what they will flow. So you have the T5 injectors, they will flow 280 cc's about at 3 bars. At 3.8 bar they will be 310 cc's. Then the next step for turbo injectors are these white ones, 350 cc's at 3 bars, or 400 at 3.8. Then you have the blue ones that are identical, but they are a bit quicker to open. They have shorter latency times. 2000 V70R that are 465 at 3.8 bar and a bit smidge over 400 cc's per minute at 3 bars. And now there are new injectors that are also white. They are called the White Knights. These were called the Green Giants. The White Knights are actually identical in flow to these Green Giant, but I suspect they are the same. They have lower latency times, and these are the most new thing from Bosch. I have not seen anybody drive their Volvo with them yet, so I can't comment on them, but on the spec sheet is identical to the green ones as flow rates go, at least. So now, if hopefully I haven't left you too much in wondering what you should do and what you shouldn't do with your injector setup. How much injectors do I need for this? How much injectors do I need for that? Or what should I put in this setup and that setup? Basically, the only thing you should think about is what sort of horsepower are you going for? If you are going for, I think, up to 400 horsepower, green are good. Up to 350, you should go for the blue or the whites. And if you want to stay around 300, the oranges are quite okay. And if you need something that flows 500 cc's per minute, then these green ones with 4 or 5 bar pressure will do that as well. They are actually rated, I think, in okay for 4 or 5 bars, these Green Giants, so they can take a lot of pressure. And if you have a stage 1 chip and you want to upgrade your injectors, you need to calculate at the same flow rate. You calculate how much bigger the injectors are. Then you can make your own mass air filter. You just calculate the area of this hole, and then you calculate how much bigger does your airflow meter have to be, and then you do a lot of fiddly work of getting this to be exactly centered in the hole. So it measures from the very middle of the hole. So you increase the area proportionally to the increase of injector size. I would not do this if you have a stock ECU. I would just only do this if you have at least a tuning chip, and then you must also consider that if your engine is producing 1 bar and you increase the area and the flow rate by 30%, you will actually get 30% more boost from the same setup. And you're basically fooling the ECU. So I was running a bigger throttle body, I was running the green injectors, and I was running this. So really the car was extremely fun to drive, in the way that when you pressed the gas there was a bit of a lag, and then suddenly all hell broke loose and the car was boosting like crazy. We were going everywhere fast. But when you were driving on the highway, you basically, all the injectors were big, the flow rate was slowly changing, and the throttle body was very rapidly increasing the airflow. So it was very hard to actually maintain a set speed with your foot, because every minimal pedal change caused a lot of magical things to happen, and the speed was going up and down. So it was it was perfectly drivable, let's say like that, but it was not as relaxed and easy that you just keep your foot and the speed is maintained at a certain level. So that is why now I'm running my stock setup again with the blue injectors and with the original throttle body, because now I have a car that I think has also low end torque, and also it's a more linear torque curve, linear power. So I have power everywhere, and it's smooth and it's nice, and it's and still when you put your foot down, it still gives you quite a few smiles. So that's why I've reverted back, but in the future I will be running these, and I will be running this bigger bigger MAF again when I get a bigger turbo, and then I will have to have a complete retune to my car. So that's all the babbling for now about injectors, about mass airflow filters. If you have questions, if you have comments, blah blah blah, you know where to write them. If you want to subscribe, you do what you like. I mean, if there are any requests for any videos, I will try to, of course, accommodate and make them. I will try to reduce my babbling with a factor of 10% and increase the quality with a factor of 12% during the coming videos. I have a few ideas what I could do, but today actually I made the clutch video, I made the throttle body video, I made these mass flow and injector videos. And hopefully I have answered some of your questions or some things that you might consider. Hopefully I have brought them out in a way that can actually allow you to make up your own conclusions. I'm not, once again, I probably forgot to tell you in the other videos that these are my conclusions, this is what I have found out, what I have tested, and this is what I'm doing now, and what works, what not. So yeah, good thing to start babbling again 2 minutes after you say you're going to babble 3% less. So anyways, take care and see you in the next video.